right, welcome back to the NewsX See Voter exit poll for Uttar Pradesh. Many disturbing trends in that state. We've talked about caste, creed, criminality, but perhaps the issue that should concern the nation the most, no single party has got a clear majority in Uttar Pradesh. As you see the numbers at the bottom of your screen, the SP is leading, followed by the BSP, then the BJP with a surprisingly strong showing, trailing, of course, the Congress party. Kalyani Shankar, the troubling issue here, as we've been talking about, is that if the BJP and the Congress, in fact, do stick with their committed stances of going it alone and not, in fact, tying up with either the Samajwadi Party or the BSP, you will have a hung assembly, perhaps even president's rule in Uttar Pradesh. Do you see that happening, or do you see the Congress or the BJP breaking their stated positions and promises?
You see, a section in the Congress is wanting for president's rule. Even a month before, I have been hearing this, that there will be president's rule and they can send their own governor and good advisors, and then they will work for 6 months or so, and then they will go back to the elections. This is one section, but there is another section which feels that BJP should be stopped, so they should combine with Mulayam Singh. But if you go by your own survey, See Voter survey now, both together also does not come to 200 plus. So that's going to be a problem. They'll have to buy from outside.
Well, let's take a Kalyani, give us a moment. Let's take a closer look at those numbers, which will matter so much. Rishabh Gulati is here, and he's got the numbers for us
and the scenarios.
Absolutely right, Jahangir. And if you take on what Kalyani has been telling you, if you add up the Samajwadi Party and as well as the Congress and the RLD, they only come up to 194. So that's the scenario that we can't predict based on our numbers. So where does it really leave us? It really leaves us with permutations and combinations of the two major parties here, the BSP and the BJP. If they get together and agree for an alliance, they can easily cross the halfway mark and get past that 202 mark. Of course, you can get some security in, get some of the independents involved in to give a bit of more of a buffer perhaps to the BSP. But if you discount the SP Congress alliance with the RLD going anywhere, there are only permutations and combinations of this scenario heading forward.
Okay, Professor Hassan, the point that one has to look at very closely are the compulsions of the Congress party at the center. The Congress needs to get rid of few of its tricky allies that haven't been able to allow the Congress the elbow room it needs to push through some of its policies, etc. This election was critical from that point of view, because it was felt that perhaps the Congress would be able to ally either with the BSP or the Samajwadi Party, and there would be a national realignment. They could get rid of some of these irritants, some thorns in their flesh, and able to sort of pull together as a more cohesive UPA ahead. But that doesn't seem to be happening if you look at those numbers.
Your numbers, it doesn't seem to be happening, but I still think that there is a very strong possibility that the Samajwadi Party is likely to get more than what you're predicting. It's in my reading, it's more likely to get, if there is, as your own analysis and debate is showing, that there is an urge for change. Now, if there is an urge for change, then that will be reflected in the Samajwadi Party getting a much larger number of seats. It may not cross the 200 mark, but it's very likely to get, let's say, 170 or 80, because it seems to be the biggest beneficiary of the anti-incumbency sentiment. Now, if the Samajwadi Party were to get something like 170, 80, then it's very likely that Congress may extend outside support, and that is the kind of buffer. I think, notwithstanding all this talk about president's rule and so on, I mean, we have to be realistic. I mean, we have to just wait, and realistically speaking, the Congress may agree to extend outside support to the Samajwadi government, which will provide it with the kind of buffer that it is looking at the center. Because, and one more point, may I just make one more point?
Yes.
I don't think that the Congress at the center is looking to get rid of its allies. I think it's looking for a buffer to deal with, let us say, the Trinamool Congress and such allies. And I think this kind of arrangement in UP, which seems to be quite likely, a very likely arrangement, would provide the Congress with the kind of buffer that it is looking for.
But Professor Kanungo, would the Congress want to ally with the Samajwadi Party at a time when Rahul Gandhi's entire philosophy seems to be geared towards the 2014 elections and going it alone? would that not be counterproductive at some level?
Well, I think this announcement that these parties would not align with other parties, I think they are mere posturing. What I understand, there is hardly any option for the Congress. If these numbers really come, they have some kind of working arrangement at the center, and they would obviously like to join, as Professor Hassan said, maybe the option would be extending outside support. So I don't think that this possibility could be ruled out. Similarly, there is also a possibility of alliance between the BSP and the BJP.
Okay, very quickly, Mr. Maheshwari, who was the message intended for by Rahul Gandhi when he said that we are going to sit out this one if we don't get the numbers, and there's a very strong likelihood of president's rule?
Yes.
Who was he addressing?
That is the stand. And so far as center is concerned, there is no danger to center. You see, we are running minority government, there is no problem.
No, answer the question. Who was he addressing?
For that, you see, there is no compulsion for us to adjust with the UP government. It is a negative voting. You see, people wanted to remove my.
No, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about that, Mr. Maheshwari. Answer the straight question. Who was Rahul Gandhi addressing?
They have made it clear that they will sit in opposition. We will sit in opposition.
No, who was that message intended for? Was it intended for allies, which
No,
showed,
no.
or was it for the voters? Because if that was the case, the voters have felt that the Congress was not bankable because it was not going to win the elections, and therefore
Either we wanted,
it was not going to be their first choice.
Either we wanted mandate of the people, or we will sit in the opposition. That is the stand.
Okay, Sanjay Kaul, in our most likely scenario, we're basically showing that it would be the BJP that would ally or support the BSP, but that would also entail your party, once again, of course, breaking its word and its promise, and you're standing shoulder to shoulder with Mayawati. Do you see that happening? Is that what you would like to see happening?
No, I don't think. Like I said, the stated position of the party is pretty clear. There has been a categorical denial on that issue. So, and apart from that, it would be wrong to comment on what we have right now, because that these are provisional. And so I don't think that's going to happen. But I think the more important point is this, even as a mandate that we have received now, this has happened earlier, it's not a unique situation. I think it makes a lot more sense to respect the sentiments of the voter and to go with it, rather than try and basically weave together something to somehow manage something.
Kamal Farooqi, let me ask you,
it doesn't work out.
Your leader Akhilesh Yadav has been quite rude to Rahul Gandhi and perhaps vice versa. Is that all just posturing? I spoke to Nitin Gadkari a day ago, and he said that basically, look, this is all a giant piece of theatre that the Samajwadi Party and Congress put up. They're basically allied and will go together.
Sorry to correct you, we have never been rude. None of my leaders have been rude to Rahul ji or anybody else.
That's a subjective decision, but my
let
point
us not discuss it.
Is this grand theatre? Is this just grand theatre, Kamal Farooq?
No, it may be, but fortunately, and on this count, we stand on a very strong footing. We have not said anything personally against anybody, including Mr. Rahul Gandhi. What I am trying to tell you that all these figures which you are talking about, even I go by your figures, this 1% swing is absolutely impractical, the way the things are moving, and you are giving too much importance to BJP, which is not going to get. I am pretty sure that we'll be getting on our own. Of course, it's all the assessments, estimates. I am an accountant, so I know how these figures are not realistic.
The question I'm really trying to ask you is, we can dispute the figures fairly, but what I'm asking you is the decision of partnering frozen? Is it firm regardless of the numbers, or is it something that's going to bend with which way the wind blows?
I think it's a very hypothetical question, because we are pretty sure that we'll be getting more than 220 seats.
Okay, so that's not the hype. The number is not hypothetical, but the question is hypothetical.
The question is because there are no permanent friends of frozen politics.
He doesn't want to take any stand.
Professor Hassan, you want to say something?
If you could tell this thing to the Congress, it would be better.
Okay, Professor Hassan, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, what I wanted to say was that I think we must recognize that most coalitions in India and coalition governments are office driven, which is to say that political parties have one strategy for elections as far as alliances are concerned, and they have a completely different approach to government formation, which is really determined by the desire to get power. So therefore, what political parties say and in the course of elections is not necessarily what they're going to do, because we have to look at the history of government formation in different states as indeed at the center. It's very clear that you have a pre-poll alliance and the post-poll alliance goes much beyond.
No, but you know, that doesn't explain some of the rhetoric that we've heard on the stuff. Rahul Gandhi coming out. After that, a couple of other senior Congress leaders from Uttar Pradesh coming out. Many people said, oh, that was, you know, sort of jockeying for the chief minister's position, etc. But a lot of others said that there was a message, a larger message in this to the Congress party itself.
No, but on the president's rule, my understanding is that only Jaiswal made that statement. I'm not aware that...
No, even Digvijay Singh made this statement.
Digvijay Singh
made this
and
statement.
Rahul Gandhi made the same statement, in fact.
I think the reason...
Gadkari and the BJP leaders have all said this for their self.
Well, I mean, if they did, that was clearly, I mean, that's not something that should have been stated, because that is just plain wrong.
Okay,
plain
but
wrong, and it's also just not right.
Kalyani Shankar, let's do the favorite thing that pundits do, you know, some navel gazing here. Let's suppose for a moment that, you know, there's a new burst of energy in the universe and Indian political parties actually stand by what they say. And let's suppose that the Congress and the BJP in fact do not ally with anyone, and we do have a hung assembly in Uttar Pradesh. What do you think the impact of that will be on the nation?
Well, you see, it is again, we had talked about it earlier also, the fracturing of the polity. It's a very, very serious thing, and then the people of this country should realize that the more and more fractured polity it is, it's less and less. There will be development, there will be other things. Every 2 months you cannot have elections. You know, it's such a huge expenditure.
No, but apart from you know this, I mean, what would be the impact, for example, on 2014? What would be the impact, Ijaz Ilmi, then you can answer after Kalyani, on the economy and the stock market and investments? Kalyani, first on 2014 and our politics.
2014 and politics, you see, now Rahul was hoping that this will be the base, but that may not be there now. And then the other parties, BJP will now, you know, wake up with a new strength if they get 80. Because after all, they were going down and down, and now suddenly this thing coming up. There is a kind of regrouping, and then also a third front or the fourth front coming up. So these possibilities at the central level are there. How they will do it, how soon they will do it, you'll have to see. But immediately after this October, November, you have Gujarat elections. So there you don't expect kind of hung assembly.
Okay, very quickly, Ijaz, before we pose the question and go into a break. Ijaz.
You know, actually, by your C voter exit poll, it's very clear that for, whether the BSP, BJP will form a government together, and can Mayawati come back? Can she be 4th time lucky with the and without prenuptials without prenuptials with the BJP? That's something very interesting. But my own prediction would be, I hang my neck out here, that you'll still have a left of centre government led by Mulayam Singh.
Okay. Many people, however, say that there is benefit for the Congress to sit out. We're going to examine that question when we return after this short break. Stay with us. Don't go away.